Hello friends, it's Mrs. Schreiber again, and today we're going to do a lesson on illustrations. I know the last couple of days we've been talking about and reading about chrysanthemum, and we're going to continue to dig a little bit deeper into that story. So let's get started. And before we start, we want to do a go noodle so that we can get calm, alert, and ready to learn.
From mindless to mindful. To be mindful is to let your attention rest on this moment, on just right now. Let's practice being in the moment. Your body is still, right now. Can you feel that? Your breath is moving in and out of your nose. Can you notice that? Rest one hand on your chest. Can you feel your breath? Move that hand to your belly. Notice breath there. Can you feel that? Bring your hands around to your back. Breath might be moving there. Feel that? This bell is ringing right now. Can you hear that? Where is your attention? Did it wander? It's okay. That's what minds do. Let's practice a little bit more. Now this bell is ringing. Can you hear that? This green dot is still. Can you see that? Some of the other dots are moving. Notice that and then focus your attention on the very still dot. Return your attention to your body. Hands. They're still. Can you feel them? Feet are still. Can you feel them? You are here right now. Can you feel that? In this moment, you are mindful. Do you notice that? There are moments in your day when you can practice being mindful. When you are reading, just read. When you are tying your shoe, just tie your shoe. When you are chewing your food, just chew. Your mind can be full of one thing, one moment at a time.
All right, now that we're calm, alert, and ready to learn, let's get started. And just think too, if you get frustrated at any time in our lesson or even during your day, you can always practice doing some breathing to get yourself back to calm. So what we're going to do today is some word work, and it's with antonyms. Antonyms are words with the opposite meaning. Do that with me. Opposite. So they're not the same meaning, they're the opposite meaning. So we're going to practice some antonyms. I'm going to show you an antonym, and then you are going to yell out the opposite, the word that means the opposite, and see if you can do it. So my word is happy. What's the opposite of happy? Think about it for a minute. Ready? Shout it out. Sad. So the opposite of happy is sad. Let's try another one. The opposite of noisy, what is it? Think about it. Shout it out. Quiet. So the opposite of noisy is quiet. Let's try another one. Hot. What is the opposite of hot? Do you have it? Shout it out. Cold. That's right. The opposite of hot is cold. Let's try another one. Mad. So the opposite of mad is, think about it. Do you have it? Shout it out. Glad. That's right. So the opposite of mad is glad. Let's try another one. What's the opposite of give? Do you have it? Shout it out. Take. That's correct. So the opposite of giving is taking. Let's try another one. Huge. So what's the opposite of huge? Shout it out. Tiny like a mouse. So the opposite of huge is tiny. Let's try another one. What's the opposite of sitting? Think about it. Shout it out. Stand. That's correct. You guys are doing awesome. Let's keep it up. And the last one here. What's the opposite of down? Shout it out. It's up. Good job. All right, now that we have an idea of what antonyms are, we're going to do a little game, and I am going to put up 3 words on the screen. You then are going to decide which 2 words are the antonyms, or the opposite of each other, and shout them out. Ready? Tall, big, short. Which 2 words are the opposite or antonyms of each other? That's correct. Tall and short. Good job. Let's try another one. Sell, buy, and show. Do you know which 2 words are the opposite or the antonyms? Shout them out. Sell and buy. That's correct. Sell and buy. Let's try another one. Go, will, won't. Which 2 words are the opposite or antonyms of each other? Ready? 3, 2, 1. Shout it out. Will and won't. That is correct. I won't do my homework, or I will do my homework. I hope you say you will do your homework. And let's try another one. Over, ground, under. Which 2 words are the opposite or the antonyms for each other? Ready? Shout it out. Over and under. Good job. Empty, full, and stay. Which 2 words are the opposite or antonyms? Ready? Shout them out. Empty and full. That is correct. And our last 3 words, reel, stop, go. Remember, which 2 words are antonyms or opposites of each other? Do you think you know yet? Go ahead and shout them out. Stop and go. Good job. You did a really nice job with the antonyms. Let's move on to some fluency practice. When we practice fluency, we want to remember a few things. We want to remember to read smoothly, with expression, with meaning, and at just the right speed. We don't want to read too fast or too slow because then it would be hard for us to understand and others. So we're going to read an excerpt from Grandma's Magic Attic. I'm going to read the passage, and you're more than welcome to join me reading the passage as well. And what I really encourage you to do is when we get finished, you can practice reading this passage or another passage by yourself, and then read that passage or this passage to a family member. "What's that thing?" asked James. He pointed to a strange box. It had a black circle on top of it and a stick that hung over the circle. The stick looked like it had a needle at the end. "That's a record player. It plays music," said Grandma. She picked up a thin square and blew dust off it. She pulled out a shiny black circle and put it on the record player. The circle started to spin and the needle came down. It began to play music. So did I read it smoothly? Yes, I did. Did I read with expression? Yes, because you could hear when I had a question or I had something exciting to say. Did I read with meaning? Yes. And did I read at just the right speed? Yes, so I was practicing good fluency. Remember, when you're reading with fluency, you want to remember all 4 of those things. All right, let's get started with our reading standard for the day that we're going to focus on. It's RL 4.1, and it states to use information gained from the illustrations and words in a print or digital text to demonstrate understanding of its characters, setting, or plot. And our I can statement is, I can use information gained from illustrations to demonstrate understanding of the characters. So we're going to focus today on just the characters of the story. Remember, we've been reading Chrysanthemum. It's a book from Scholastic by Kevin Hinkes. And of course, it's one of my favorites. So we're going to keep reading on about it. And we're looking at the illustrations or the pictures in the story. So I'm not really looking at the words down here. I really want to pay attention to what's happening in the picture. And I want to just describe that only, nothing else. And what I notice in this picture is I see Chrysanthemum, and she's sleeping, and it looks like a basket, but it's probably a bassinet. And that's really all I noticed. She's not really doing anything else. I'm not looking at her facial expressions. I was just looking at the picture alone. And the words on the page I'm going to look at now, they say that she was born, the day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives, and her parents both thought she was perfect. In fact, they thought she was absolutely perfect. So in my graphic organizer, I'm going to write in here the illustration. So I'm going to put the page number and what I actually saw in the picture. And then I have the text. So that will be a column where I'm describing what the actual text said on that page. And then my last column is like, now I know. So it's kind of, I'm taking what I read and what I looked at in the picture, and I'm putting them together and making kind of an inference about what's happening in the story. So on page one, we noticed that Chrysanthemum was sleeping in her bassinet, and that's all. There was nothing else. And the text stated that Chrysanthemum's parents were happy when she was born, and they thought that she was perfect. So now I know that Chrysanthemum's parents must love her very much. And I know that because they had this really sweet sleeping baby, and they loved her so much. She was perfect. So I know that. Let's look at another page. We see this picture here, and again, I'm only focusing on the picture. I'm not worried about the words right now, just the picture. And in this picture, I see Chrysanthemum leaping and jumping in the air. So now I'm wondering, what does it actually say on the page? It says Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. And on the first day, she wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. And she ran all the way to school. So in my graphic organizer, I want to add those things. On page 6, chrysanthemum was leaping and jumping in the air. Again, just looking at the picture alone, not the words yet. In the text, it states that chrysanthemum thought her name was perfect and she wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. So now we have a little bit more information about what was going on. So now I know that chrysanthemum was excited for her first day of school. Think about when you start school or for the first time or you start a new school year. How excited you might be to go to school. That's how chrysanthemum felt. Let's look at another picture. So when we're looking at these pictures, we need to keep in mind that we don't know all the thoughts and feelings of the character. We're just seeing with our eyes just the picture alone. Now we know what's going on in the story because we've read it a couple times. But if we're just looking at the pictures, we might not know what's going on. So in this picture here, it looks like chrysanthemum's alone. She's kind of off to the side. And I know that these characters' names are Joe, Rita, and Victoria because they have name tags on. Otherwise, I'd probably just say they were 3 characters. But I know their names, and so they look like they're just like pointing. They kind of look like she's laughing. This one looks super dramatic, Victoria. So we kind of know that about her. If we look at the words on the page, it says that Joe and Rita and Victoria, they aren't saying very kind things about chrysanthemum and her name. And chrysanthemum even wilted, and she did not like her name at all. She thought it was dreadful. So again, in my graphic organizer, I would add page 8 and say that chrysanthemum is standing alone, and she's standing there with Joe, Rita, and Victoria who are pointing at her. That's all. We don't know that they're making fun of her or not. But after we read the text, we know that they are making fun of chrysanthemum's name and that chrysanthemum did not think her name was perfect. So now I know that chrysanthemum was sad in that picture and she thought her name was dreadful. So now after I read the text and I look at the pictures, I have a better idea of what's happening in the story. Let's look at another picture. Again, we see chrysanthemum alone, and it looks like Joe, Rita, and Victoria are hanging out on the playground. And they're pointing at her again. Victoria has a kind of a smile on her face, but I'm not really sure if she's being nice. And when we look at the words on the page, the text even says that they're talking about her name again, making fun of her, saying she looks like a flower. And chrysanthemum is sad again. She wilted, which means she's kind of like this, like a flower. And so again, in my illustration, I'm putting down that Joe and Rita and Victoria were pointing and laughing at her and at chrysanthemum on the playground. And they're making fun of her name. That's what it said in the text. And chrysanthemum wilted. So now I know that chrysanthemum, again, she doesn't like her name and she is sad. Let's look at another picture. Again, in this picture, what I notice is that chrysanthemum's sitting outside of her house and her mom and dad are leaning out the window with some cookies. And when I read the text, her parents are greeting her, and chrysanthemum is really sad and says she doesn't like school. School's no place for me, that the girls were making fun of her, and her parents try to tell her that she's absolutely perfect. So in my graphic organizer again, I'm adding in the page number 18 and telling about what's happening, that chrysanthemum was crying outside of her house and her parents were leaning out the window with their cookies. And the text actually states that her parents were greeting her and chrysanthemum tells her that she doesn't like school or her name, and her parents tell her that her name is special. So now I know that chrysanthemum was sad about her name and she didn't want to go back to school. So think about if you were feeling like chrysanthemum and you were sad because people were making fun of you, you might not want to go back either. And let's look at our final pictures here. We've got 4 on this page. 1, chrysanthemum looks kind of surprised here. In the second one over here, she looks a little bit sad maybe. Not sure. She has a smile on her face, but she's kind of looking sad, maybe shy. And then in this third picture, she looks a little happy, like, hey. And then in this last one, she's like hugging herself. She's so excited. When I look at the words though on the text, I notice that it says she could scarcely believe what she had heard. And she blushed and she beamed and she bloomed and she was saying her name. And so again, when I add this into my illustration column, I noticed there were 4 pictures of Chrysanthemum and she looked surprised and shy and happy and she was hugging herself. But the words on the text told me that she couldn't believe what she heard and she blushed and beamed and bloomed. And so now I know that Chrysanthemum was proud of her name and thought it was perfect. All right, so now I want you to try a little bit with me. Using this illustration, how does Chrysanthemum feel in this picture, do you think? Do you think she's happy, B, mad, or C, embarrassed? If you said C, embarrassed, you are correct. She's embarrassed. Remember, we know what's going on in this picture because we've read this text a couple times. But if I was just looking at this and I noticed Chrysanthemum, she's off by herself and she even has her hand up over her face, kind of like, I don't want to be here anymore. So I don't think she's happy, and she certainly doesn't look angry because her eyebrows would be down like she was mad. So she has to be embarrassed. What about this picture? Using this illustration, how did Joe, Rita, and Victoria feel? So now we're looking at different characters. Do you think they're A, excited, B, surprised, or C, joyful? Well, I would think if they were excited, they might have their eyes open, but I think they'd have a big smile on their face. When I'm excited, I usually have a pretty big smile on my face. Joyful, C, again, I think they would have a pretty big smile on their face. I know if I'm surprised, B, my eyes really big and I almost have like no expression on my face. And that's the way the 3 of them look. So they are B, surprised. All right, so I have something for you to practice now in your packet. I have the same story that we've read the last couple of times called The Lost Cat, and I've added some pictures in there. And so what I need you to do is read the questions and use the illustrations as well as the story to help you determine how that character is feeling. Remember, it's important to look at the pictures as well as the text. Those pictures give us a lot of hints and clues, and it really shows us what the author wants us to think. So our code word for today is the antonym or opposite of sad, which is happy. So our code word for today is happy. Remember, those antonyms are opposites, and practice your fluency when you get a chance. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time.